The ice world of Varkesh 9 had never seen a human before Lirahan arrived. The planet's native warriors, the Varkeshi, were a species bred for war-towering figures with chitinous armor plating and forearms designed for maximum combat efficiency. They had conquered 17 star systems through sheer martial prowess, and their military academies were legendary across the galaxy. Lirahan was neither tall nor imposing. She stood at 5'3", wore a thermal jacket 2 sizes too large, and had arrived on Varkesh 9 as part of a cultural exchange program that most Varkeshi commanders viewed as a bureaucratic formality. The Galactic Council had insisted. The Varkeshi had complied. No one expected anything meaningful to come of it. Certainly not Commander Threx, who watched from the observation deck as the human woman stood in the training yard, surrounded by fresh snow. Beside her was Cub Rek, the youngest recruit in the academy, barely 8 solar cycles old, his armor plates still soft and developing. "What is she doing?" Threx growled to his second-in-command. "Unknown. Commander." She requested access to the outdoor training grounds. Said something about cultural demonstration. Through the reinforced windows, they watched as Lyra bent down and scooped up a handful of snow. Cub Rek mimicked her movement with 2 of his 4 hands, his yellow eyes bright with curiosity. "First," Lyra said, her voice carrying through the communication system, "you pack it gently. Not too hard, not too soft. Feel the snow compress." Cub Rek squeezed his handful of snow. It crumbled. He looked up at Lyra with what might have been disappointment. "That's okay," she smiled. "Try again. Use a circular motion like this." She demonstrated, rolling the snow between her palms until it formed a perfect sphere. The young Varkeshi tried again. This time, a lumpy but recognizable ball took shape in his smaller hands. His mandibles clicked with excitement. "Excellent," Lyra praised. "Now, the fun part." She turned toward a training dummy 50 meters away and threw her snowball. It sailed through the air in a graceful arc and struck the dummy square in the center mass. Cub Rek's eyes widened. He looked down at his own snowball, then at the dummy, then back at Lyra. "Your turn," she encouraged. The cub wound up with all the enthusiasm of youth and hurled his snowball. It fell apart mid-flight, scattering harmlessly 10 meters away. In the observation deck, Threx snorted. A waste of time. The cub should be learning combat forms, not playing with frozen water. But Lyra was already helping Cub Rek make another snowball, and another. With each attempt, the young Varkeshi's technique improved. His throws grew stronger, more accurate. By the 3rd day, other cubs had joined them. Word had spread through the academy that the human was teaching something strange and wonderful. Soon, a dozen young Varkeshi were learning the art of snowball construction. Lyra taught them about trajectory and velocity. She explained how wind resistance affected projectiles. She showed them how to lead a moving target, how to judge distance, how to compensate for their own movement. She made them practice until their throws were instinctive. Soft combat drills, Threx had begun calling it sarcastically. The name stuck. On the 5th day, Lyra divided the cubs into 2 teams. She explained the concept of capture the flag, drawing diagrams in the snow. The young Varkeshi listened with rapt attention as she described strategy, teamwork, and tactical positioning. The mock battle that followed was chaos, beautiful, joyful chaos. Cubs dove behind snowbanks for cover. They flanked enemy positions. They communicated with hand signals. They learned to suppress enemy movement with coordinated volleys of snowballs. And they laughed. The Varkeshi did not laugh often, but the cubs laughed. Commander Threx watched from his observation post. His expression, unreadable. By the 2nd week, senior warriors had begun to observe the soft combat drills. They noticed things. The cubs who participated showed improved spatial awareness. Their reflexes sharpened. Their ability to work in coordinated units had increased dramatically. More importantly, they had learned to think creatively. In traditional Varkeshi combat training, there was one correct response to each scenario. But in Lyra's snowball battles, the cubs learned improvisation. They learned that there were multiple paths to victory. On the 15th day, Commander Threx himself stepped into the training yard. Lyra looked up from where she was helping Cub Rec construct a snow fortification. "Human," Threx rumbled. "I would participate in your soft combat drills." Lyra's eyes sparkled. "I'd be honored, Commander. Shall we make it interesting? You and 3 of your warriors against me and 4 cubs." Threx's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. Acceptable terms. The battle lasted 40 minutes. The commander and his warriors had strength, experience, and 4 arms each. But Lyra and the cubs had tactics. They used the terrain. They set traps. Cub Rec led a flanking maneuver that would have made any general proud. In the end, both sides stood covered in snow and breathing hard. Threx looked at the small human woman who had just orchestrated a tactical victory against seasoned warriors, using nothing but frozen water and imagination. "Your soft combat drills," he said slowly, "will be integrated into all cub training. You will teach our instructors your methods." Lyra bowed her head respectfully. "I'd be happy to, Commander." As Threx walked away, he paused and looked back. "Human Lyra Han, your species has conquered no worlds. You have no natural armor, no great strength. How did you survive long enough to reach the stars?" Lyra smiled and placed a hand on Cub Rec's shoulder. The young Varkeshi had made his best snowball yet and was holding it up proudly. "Commander," she said softly, "we learned that the greatest weapon isn't always the sharpest claw or the thickest armor. Sometimes it's the ability to see a handful of snow and imagine all the possibilities it contains. We taught our children to play, and through play, they learned to think. That's how humans survived. That's how we thrived." Threx considered this for a long moment. Then he nodded once and continued on his way. Behind him, Cub Rec threw his perfect snowball at a distant target. It struck true, and his triumphant roar echoed across the frozen training grounds of Varkesh 9. A sound of joy that the ancient ice world had never heard before, but would never forget.